Hi and welcome to this tutorial on predicting bonding types. So in the previous tutorial we learned about the different allotropes of carbon, so diamond, graphite, graphene and Buckminster fullerenes as well, and how their physical structures differ and their properties too. So in this tutorial we're going to be having a look at crystal structures and predicting structures as well. When we're looking at crystal structures, we are discussing the ordered arrangement of many repeating units of atoms or ions in a three-dimensional lattice. So with these crystalline structures, they go on and on into the distance. As I always say, these are moving on and on into the distance, for example. This is just a unit of that model. And so here is one of the repeating units of sodium chloride. So we've got four main types of crystal structures that you need to know. We've got the ionic, the metallic, and the giant covalent, and of course the simple molecular as well, because they can form crystals. Even though they've got those weak intermolecular forces, they're still able to form those. So those are our main types. If we have a look to start with, of course, at our ionic structure, because you can see this is sodium chloride. So we've got a large number of oppositely charged ions held in that regular three-dimensional lattice. And we've got these strong electrostatic forces of attraction holding these ions together, so the positive and the negatives. And of course, they're known as ionic bonds. Then, if we look at the giant covalent or macromolecular structure, so we looked at these a few tutorials back, we've got a large number of atoms joined together, but this time not through ionic bonds, they're joined together with covalent bonds. And there aren't an infinite number of different types of these. There's a few main types that you need to know. So they're not particularly common as such. So we've got an extremely strong structure due to lots of covalent bonds going on. And an example, diamond, as we looked at in the carbon allotropes, would be an example of this. Lots and lots of covalent bonds. And then we've got a metallic structure. As you can see here, we've got our large number of closely packed, positively charged metal ions in the center. So these are our orange circles here, and they're surrounded by a sea of delocalized electrons. Remember, they're delocalized because the electrons are not associated with any particular atom and they're free to move. And the lattice is held together by the strong electrostatic forces of attraction between those positive metal ions and the oppositely charged sea of electrons around them. And then, of course, we've got the simple molecular structure. We've got an example of iodine here. So each of these iodines, they are separate units. We do not have any ionic or covalent bonds going beyond those two atoms. But what we do have is intermolecular forces, so London forces, also known as van der Waals on some of the old specifications. So we've got the molecules, the simple molecules, held together themselves by strong covalent bonds. These are the purple bonds here. But then these individual molecules are held in a regular lattice by those weak intermolecular forces of attraction, and those are the black dots here. And if the temperature is low enough, or the energy is low enough, then they can be held effectively relatively still in a strong lattice, in a regular shape and structure. The type of structure taken by a compound will determine its physical properties. Let's have a look at some key examples of these then. So if I'm looking at ionic bonding, of course, sodium chloride is a really good example, but I can also have something like sodium hydroxide as well. That's a good example. We know this is solid at room temperature. You can think about table salt in terms of sodium chloride, but most of these salts are, so they're solid at room temperature. It cannot conduct electricity as a solid, but they can, because they've got mobile ions to carry a charge so they can conduct electricity as a liquid. And yes, we can dissolve salts in water. Our simple covalent, our most obvious examples are probably going to be water and carbon dioxide. That's a good one as well. And they're going to be mainly liquid or gas, as you can see in these examples. Of course, except I2, iodine that we were having a look at, because we know that sublimes to, that can be a solid that sublimes straight to a gas. And do they conduct electricity? No, they do not. Do they conduct it as a liquid? No. And their solubility definitely varies. And then we've got our giant structure. So we don't have loads of these to remember, but graphite and diamond are two that you're going to come across quite a lot. Of course, they are solid. Can they conduct electricity? No, except for graphite. okay, because of that fourth electron is delocalized. And then we don't want to talk about whether they conduct electricity as a liquid because they've got a really high melting and boiling point. So we're not really going to be able to test that out. And the solubility in water, no, they don't dissolve in water. And then we've got copper, aluminium, and let's pick magnesium. That's a good example of metals that we can come across. They are solid, of course, at room temperature and pressure. Obviously, we have some exceptions, our liquid metals, but for the most part, they're solid. Electrical conductivity, yes, of course, copper wiring. And as a liquid, yes, they've got those delocalized electrons and those mobile charged ions. And no, they are not soluble in water. Here's a question to have a go at yourself. So pause the video, give it a go. A structure that can only conduct electricity when molten or dissolved in water. In my head, I'm going to be thinking ionic. Okay, so an ionic compound. But I'm going to check a few other things as well. Remember, the reason why they can conduct electricity when molten or dissolved is that they've got those mobile charged particles that are able to carry a charge in those cases. And then I'm thinking about the fact it's got a high boiling point. Now, this fits with my ionic compound theory as well, because those electrostatic forces of attraction between those positive and negatively charged ions is very, very strong and requires a lot of energy to overcome. Therefore, I would expect a high boiling point for an ionic compound. Maybe I'll swap out the word compound for structure, because really that's what we're talking about. So ionic structure. When we're trying to predict the structure of an unknown compound, it's good to eliminate things. So to rule out other structures. So we know this can't be a metallic structure because it can only conduct electricity when molten or dissolved. And of course, metallic structures can conduct electricity when they're a solid. So as a result of the high melting point or boiling point in this particular case, we know that it's not going to be simple molecular because they've got a low melting and boiling point. And it can't be giant covalent because it can conduct electricity. I would obviously want to double check for graphite, for example, but I know that graphite, it does not dissolve in a solution. So you can see how I've got all of my options in my head and I'm eliminating as I go along.